Hello everybody, it's Wyvern here with another bit of Total War Warhammer 2 Quick Match gameplay. This time we're on Iron Mountain Pass, playing as the forces of the Dark Elves against the forces of Sartosa. And, well, this is a match that's interesting. I do think the Dark Elves don't have a good, well, honestly there's a lot of factions that have a pretty bad matchup against the Vampire Coast. Dark Elves just happen, I think, to be one of them. But I think the Dark Elves are in a bit of an odd middle ground. I think the Dark Elves don't have as bad of a fight as some of the very dedicated melee factions like Chaos or Norska or Beastmen. But at the same time, they certainly have a much harder time than factions like Empire or High Elves or those sorts of factions. They just don't have the range tools to really compete. But I figured, you know what? Let's try a build centered around Shades. Now, Shades are one of those units you almost never see. They're a unit that basically nobody uses. They're a bit of a meme unit almost. And I figured in this matchup, they might have a bit of a niche. There actually might be a few matchups, but I figured this one might be one matchup where they can really shine in large numbers. Because, well, they've got a lot going for them. They've got Stalk, they've got AP missiles, which can help against big crabs. They've got very good melee stats. Here I'm running the dual wielding Shades. I figured, obviously, the great weapon's kind of pointless. If you need to gun something down that has high armor, well, you got crossbows that do stupid amounts of damage. And if you need to cleave through zombies or trash or sirens buffed up by some magic damage, well then in that case you don't need AP. So either way, they've got some really solid all-around stats. They've got some decent protection against artillery because of their stock, and I figured, you know what, this might be cool. So we are running 4 units of Shades with dual weapons, all Vanguard, or all right on the edge of our deployment here. In fact, I didn't Vanguard deploy because my opponent ran Sartosa, and my suspicion when I saw Sartosa being picked was that it's going to be some sort of Vanguard rush with Morngulls and the Sartosan militia, but my opponent did not do that, so he did a pretty conventional or more conventional sort of campy artillery build instead, and that is obviously what you see most of the time with Vampire Coast, but nonetheless I was a bit concerned, so I deployed a bit further back. We also do have Araness Assault Spite here, so that's going to be interesting. You don't see her very often because she's been nerfed and she isn't particularly great to begin with, I think. Now for mainline, well, it's 4 units of Dread Spears looking just to anchor the line. To be honest, Bleak Swords might be the better choice here to cleave through zombies faster. But at the time I was thinking, maybe this will help against like Morngulls and that sort of stuff. So Dread Spears, decent choice, I think, just to soak up damage. Then 2 Sisters of Slaughter to really win that frontline fight against zombies decisively and quickly. Besides that, we do have a Supreme Sorcerer of Fire for a few reasons. 1, so that we have Flaming Sword of Ruin to counter Sirens. 2, so we've got Fireball, so we can wipe out artillery from a safe distance. And then the Cascading Fire Cloak is just a nice buff. We also do have Arcane Conduit. We've got Opal Amulet for the protection, Kindle Flame for the damage, and Ardripple's Black Horror, which is honestly one of my favorite abilities. It's an amazing looking spell, and hopefully we can get some good use out of it here. And I figured, you know, against lines of zombies, it could be great. Besides that, we do have 2 units of Harpies on either end looking to shut down my opponent's backline. And of course, Harpies, you know, they're not amazing. They're susceptible to fear, terror, all that sort of stuff. But they've got some solid melee stats. Again, they can tear up squishy units, so that's really what matters. Now over here, I'm going to push my sorcerers forward and pop a shot at the Queen Bess because my opponent went with a bit of a campy conventional build, but definitely trying to meme a little bit here with Queen Bess. So going over my opponent's build, he's got a front line of zombie pirate deckhands, not much to be said there. Backed by 2 sirens, these guys will be an absolute menace unless I can hit him with some magic. Depth Guard, zombie pirate gunnery mob, Depth Guard with full arms, the Regiment of Renown, in fact, Bloody Reaver deck card. A Vampire Fleet Captain of Vampires who has the Zombie Summon, Invocation of the Heck, Fin of Death, Power Stone, and Taunt. And then Araness Assault Spite, who's got her lucky dice here, or Menon's luck, All Hands Hoy, Spearfisher's Net, and Kraken's Bane. So some cool buffs. Araness, not the most amazing, I think, Lord. Honestly pretty trash, in fact. But we'll see how she performs here. She's definitely pretty cheap, which is one of the nice things. And she obviously has a net, which is also potent. So my opponent did try to demount the Queen Bess, but fun fact of the day, guys, Fireball homes in on the artillery pieces, not on the crew. So if you fire off your shot at the artillery piece and then your opponent decrews it to escape, it doesn't matter. The fireball will still go after the cannon. And so the Queen Bess is almost down already within the first fireball. I did overcast. In the meantime, my opponent has been harassing me with these deck droppers, and he managed to force off my Shades here. He actually spotted them with the deck droppers. Unfortunately for him, though, Queen Bess is not able to hit him. But he has done some damage. He's already done some hurt to my poor Harpies. He's hurt my Sorcerers a good bit, in fact. But we're going to come around for round 2. I'm trying to get another pass. You can see we've actually popped Arcane Conduit. We actually, between the gunfire and a miscast there, it's definitely some rough stuff. But Fireball is coming in for the killing blow against Queen Bess. My opponent once again demounting the crew, but like I said before, homes in on the artillery piece, and Queen Bess is gone. So honestly, this is one of the things. Vampire Coast is a super gimmicky faction, but their artillery can definitely be countered, and Fireball is just such a stupidly powerful spell. Definitely a very potent gimmicky spell in its own right. And here we removed Queen Bess from play. So my opponent down essentially 1,600 gold for 18 wins of magic, so definitely a good trade for me. Unfortunately, we are losing some harpies here and there, but at this stage, with no artillery for my opponent, we are going to commit, and we're going to push forward with our shades, with our infantry, and look to crush my opponent underfoot. In the meantime, my sorceress is going to hide in the back. I don't see any reason to risk her. And as we sort of commit, you can see the harpies here are going to split up. Some of them are going to chase after the flyers. These guys kind of back up, but we're going to push them back in shortly. And some of the harpies are going to go down after these little zombie pirate gunnery mobs. And the main goal, of course, is simply to zone off these deck guns, because I do not want them working on my shades. I don't want them working on my Sister Slaughter, and I most certainly don't want them killing my Supreme Sorcerers. So yeah, we're going to be forcing them off with harpies. And harpies, of course, if they can just chase them, it's a cost-efficient trade, gold-wise. So it's definitely good for me. In the meantime, the Shades do get into range, and they're going to start unloading on the Depth Guard, whose 90 armor is literally irrelevant. You can see the blood spurting out of these vampires. These guys now realize they've got to suck some fresh blood to replenish, and so they're running through the withering fire there, and they get whittled down. They've got nothing left, basically. The harpies are diving in, not on them. The harpies were actually going after the gunnery mobs there, but in the meantime, the good old Sister of Slaughter are in the fray, crushing those zombie pirate deckhands, and the poor Depth Guard died ignominiously, destroyed. Just some really, really harsh stuff there. Some harsh life lessons for the vampires. In the meantime, though, unfortunately, the harpies do get terror routed by this mere presence of the sirens, so that kind of sucks. Though on the periphery, our harpies are chasing off these deck droppers with handguns, so that is definitely a big win for us. In the meantime, my opponent gets a beautiful Wind of Death, completely annihilating a unit of spears. They shatter instantly. It's one of those things you rarely see, but I just didn't dodge fast enough. And my Sister of Slaughter actually took a bit of a clip there as well. You can see a few of them as bloody smears back here who got clipped. Fortunately, they're going to stick in the fight here. Their leadership just barely holding with him with a Cascading Fire Cloak, and they will stick around for now. In the meantime, on the periphery, my opponent comes in against the Shades, but we are going to counterattack with Flaming Sword of Ruin. Shades, of course, have monstrous melee stats. If we look, even with the debuff from the Sirens affecting them, they've got 41 melee attack right now. I think they actually got missed, which is by the attack from the Sirens. But they got 41 melee attack stacked on top of bonus versus infantry of 8, so almost 50 melee attack. And these Sirens are getting crushed. It doesn't matter. They've got 32 melee defense. They're just going down in a brutal fashion. In the meantime, on the other flank, my opponent did get these Sirens into my Shades, and they were doing some work. And of course, I don't have 2 Flaming Swords of Ruin, so the Shades here will have to hold on their own. And they are holding, you know, relatively well. Sirens, they do have good stats, but, well, decent stats. But they certainly cannot tank for eternity. So you can see our Jripal's Black Horror coming in, looking to clean up this magical mess on the flanks. And it just melts the Sirens. Now, it probably melted some of our Shades there too, but what can you do? The Sirens completely destroyed as that cloud of disgusting smoke runs through them. So at this stage, it is basically GG. My opponent has lost Ernest, I believe. I actually gunned her down, or she's actually been shattered off the field by our Shades. The Vampire Fleet Captain here getting gunned down by the Shade Fire. The Bloody Reaver deck card are crushing the Sisters at this point, which isn't surprising, but it just doesn't matter. They're not going to be able to do much. Now that everything's been cleaned up, now that the Spears are mopping up the deckhands, the Harpies are back to clean up the gunnery mobs. The only thing my opponent really has left in this stage of the game is the Bloody Reaver deck card and the Vampire, and those guys are just getting shredded. Over here you can see the Harpies still chasing after those deck card droppers, trying to catch them, but what can you do? So definitely the Supreme Sorcerers here kind of laughing, cackling in the air as the end is nigh for the poor vampires, and they're going to get crushed here pretty handily by the forces of the Dark Elves. So obviously, and look at that delightful smidgen of lag there. I don't know what is up with that. But obviously this is not the most competitive build for my opponent. Queen Bess, bit of a meme pick. Aranus Assault Spite is just not good. She's just not good. There's nothing else to say. She's a pointless lord. She needs, in my opinion, she should never have lost Hornswaggle. If anybody should have lost it, it should have been Luther Harkon. And she's currently kind of pointless. She's not an effective cheap lord. There's much better cheap lord options for the coast. Her net's cool, but you just don't need net because you can spam summons. You just bring a Lord of Vampires, cast her, and you got summons. And she doesn't really deliver much. She can't catch large targets. She's too slow. It's just She's just not that good. But besides that, well, the build did have some merit. Definitely a lot of shooting. A lot. The front line, okay at holding, just stalling. So I think this build, though, is pretty solid against Vampire Coast. And the Shades proving very, very useful. With the buffs from Flaming Sword of Ruin, they were able to annihilate the Sirens. With the, obviously their AP fire crushed the Depth Guard. They only got 2 kills, probably against the Harpies that kind of committed in earlier. They would have been able to annihilate the Depth Guard. They completely wrecked the Vampire Fleet Captain and Aranessa. And on the other flank, where we got tied down with the Sirens, we actually managed to melt them with the Supreme Sorceress. Our Zripal's Black Horror, an amazing spell, gorgeous spell, and just destroyed those poor Sirens. So the Sirens got very little value. And of course, Fireball, just so disgusting against Queen Bess. Now for my opponent, he had that beautiful Wind of Death, 140 kills. Most of those on my Spearmen. An entire unit of Spears was basically wiped from the face of the earth, which is pretty cool. You don't see that every day. I probably wouldn't be saying that was pretty cool if I lost the game. I'd probably be like whining, crying. But in all seriousness, it was pretty funny to see. So good stuff there with the Wind of Death. That said, I think it's a waste of Winds of Magic, honestly. Now, sure, you got rid of your unit of Dread Spears, but really Invocation of Neck and Summons would have been far more valuable at shutting down my Shades and my backline. But regardless, yeah, as Dark Elves, if you're looking for strats, I don't know if this is like the optimal way to go, but Fireball, definitely a great tool to shut down artillery. It'll do okay against mortars, carronades, that sort of stuff as well, and it completely demolishes Queen Bess. And Shades, decent pick. They'll crush everything that has good armor with shooting, everything that tries to get into melee with them. They can beat except Sirens, but Sirens, well, that's what you've got your sorcerers for. And of course, you've got the front line blocking force of Spears and Sisters and that sort of stuff. So. And of course, Harpies, they're not a bad pick here either. They can shut down the back line, so if you're pushing in against some more shooting heavy armor, you can use your Shades to kill prime targets. Harpies tie down the back line. Sisters will win you specific gaps in the front line, and it works out, in my opinion. I think the main thing I'd change probably is bring in, or trying to find a spot to cram in Burning Skull, because it's just so good against squishy trash. Regardless, so well played to my opponent. If I had a recommendation here for what I would change, obviously I think the build was just a bit gimmicky, perhaps, looking to camp on the Queen Bess, essentially. I would ditch Aranessa, she's just so bad. I'd bring a Vampire Fleet Admiral with vampires, with a pistol, and lure vampires. I just think it's a much better choice. And immediately, that would free up gold for you. Like, even if you want to bring the Bloody Reaver Death Guard, which is a bit overpriced right now, I think, and you want to do Death Guard, which is cool, it's completely viable, so Death Guard can work. But I would just merge your hero and lord, essentially, and bring like some hounds or more zombies, or use your zombie summons or something like that. But regardless, well played to my opponent. I do hope you guys enjoyed the video. Hope you find it fun, entertaining, and hopefully something new. Bringing Shades, bringing the Dark Elves, so I don't play too much. If you enjoyed, be sure to leave a like and subscribe and share it. And if you have comments, critiques, questions, requests, don't hesitate to post them, and I will do my best to respond as soon as I can. I do thank you all for watching, and I'll see you all in the next one. Bye for now.